Today we want to look a little bit at how fractures repair themselves. So to start, we need to look at an initial fracture. So we're going to look at a fracture of the foot. And in this particular case, we're looking at a fracture that has occurred on the second metatarsal. So the fracture is going to occur right here upon this bone. So if we look here, we're looking at a fracture right here. Now, if that fracture occurs, it might look something like this. So here is what would be your big toe. This would be the part that is actually like where your shoelaces go, and this is the part that makes up your ankle. So these are metatarsals. This is metatarsal 1 and metatarsal 2. And here is our fracture. Now, of course, these bones are not alive, so this doesn't really show all that would be happening in this area of injury. But that's what we want to look at today, is what exactly happens when we have a fracture like this. So we're going to take look at some images of how this occurs and talk about what happens from the moment the fracture occurs. So first of all, when the fracture first happens, there are tons of blood vessels in the Haversian canals and the perforating canals in between these two bones. So those get broken and blood flow will leak out into the surrounding tissues. Now, even if it's a closed fracture, meaning it's not open to the outside, we're still going to have loss of blood into the surrounding tissues. And this will cause a large amount of swelling, and it will also cause a lot of bruising. Within 6 to 8 hours, we usually form what's called a hematoma, a fracture hematoma, and this is a clot. And this clot usually forms above the fracture line, so usually the clot fills this entire space around the bone. And again, this happens within 6 to 8 hours. This clot is to stop the loss of blood, but it also aids in the healing process that we'll look at in a minute. So let's look at some images of what that clot might look like. So first of all, these are images of a broken metatarsal number 2. Now, there are several fractures in this particular image, but some of them are of metatarsal 2. So this one is a metatarsal 2 fracture right here. Now, after the metatarsal 2 fracture has occurred, then that hematoma will form, that blood clot. So let's look at what that blood clot actually looks like. So here's another picture of the fracture. This is what the hematoma would look like on the person's foot. You can see that the person's foot is really swollen. Typically the blood flow is seeping down to the lowest point of where gravity would take it. And so this is what that hematoma looks like from the external view. This is, of course, a closed fracture, so it's not open to the outside, but we see a large amount of swelling. This is happening because the blood flow has been stopped to the area by the hematoma, and then as those blood vessels have been closed off, fluid is leaking around into the surrounding tissues. So this is what it looks like in terms of a picture. So in step 1, we break blood vessels across the bone area that's been broken, and then a hematoma forms. This is an image of a hematoma that's more cartoonish in nature, but you can certainly see that blood has stopped, and because these blood vessels have blood going to them, but it's stopped by the hematoma, then fluid is leaking out into these surrounding areas, causing swelling. Step 2 is that the blood flow stops to this area, causing the swelling and bruising, and again, this typically happens within 6 to 8 hours. As the circulation stops, new blood vessels have to enter the area. So step 3 of repair is to have new blood vessels enter the area. As you can see here, new blood vessels are growing into this area. Now, the medullary cavity has also been interrupted, so this becomes an area of non-functioning bone marrow during this time of healing, and this is all going to be a repair area. The blood clot, as you notice, is still there. Now, as the new blood vessels grow into this area, they're going to bring cells to help clean up the damage. So now these new roadways or new blood vessels have developed. We're going to clean up the injury that we have. So osteoclasts come in, and these osteoclasts come in through the new blood vessels and through the periosteum, the edge of the bone, and they move in here and they clean up a lot of this hematoma. They consume pieces of bone. Phagocytes come in, which are white blood cells, and these white blood cells clean up dirt and debris and pieces of this hematoma. So the hematoma becomes more granulated now. Once the area has been cleaned up, a lot of the hematoma is gone and the new blood vessels are now there. What's remaining now is we call step 5, and step 5 is called a procallus. It's what remains of the hematoma after the blood flow has stopped and after the osteoclasts and the phagocytes have cleaned up the area. Now the new cells come in to start repairing this bone, and fibroblasts come in first. So fibroblasts move into the area. A fibroblast is a fiber-producing cell, so they move in and they start secreting collagen and other fibers that connect the two ends of the bone together. Collagen are flexible fibers, so these hold the ends of the bone together, but still make it pretty weak. This collagen and fibrin connect the two ends of broken bone. Now chondroblasts move in. This would be step 7. When the chondroblasts come in, they bring in the cartilage, so they secrete cartilage matrix, and now the cartilage is secreted into this area. So now we not only have fibers connecting the two areas, but we also have cartilage connecting those two areas. This is now called a fibrocartilaginous callus. This is soft. This takes typically about 3 weeks to develop, and at this point, if a person were to remove their cast, their bones would be tied together, but they would be tied together by soft tissue, and therefore still quite flexible and still able to separate. So it is not time yet to remove a cast. The next step is a bony callus formation, and the bony callus develops as bone cells move into the area. Now we know that bone cells are things like osteoblasts. So osteoblasts move into the area, and these osteoblasts come from the periosteum and the endosteum. So they come from this area right here, the periosteum, and this inner lining called the endosteum. These osteoblasts are produced by osteoprogenitor cells. They come into the area and they secrete osteoid, which joins with the cartilage that's already there, and then also joins with salts and minerals from the blood and creates spongy bone, that trabeculated bone. Now a bony callus has formed, and you can see that the bony callus actually extends beyond where the bone boundaries are. And so we get kind of a bump where that new spongy bone is forming. Once it's completely healed, the spongy bone continues to fill in as osteoblasts are secreting osteoid, and that's joining with salts and minerals. And again, the bone will have kind of this bump over it for a period of time, and this bump is typically known as the bony callus. This is an image of what the bony callus would look like after the bone has healed. So here is our same fracture of metatarsal 2, and here you can see the bony callus that has formed over the top. Now keep in mind that once the bony callus has formed, the bone is repaired, and now of course the cast could be removed. Keep in mind that this bony callus usually remains for a couple years, maybe a year or 2, just until this bone has remodeled itself through our calcitonin parathyroid hormone cycle, and then typically that bony callus goes away. So typically people can feel that bony callus for a period of time after their fracture.